what we find a lot of times is, again, depending on the audience, but if we are, for example, I was talking about associations earlier, the posts that we use for associations whose members are physicians, those always do better if we post at like 7 a.m. before clinic starts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because they may not stop for lunch and they're just going to go back to back all through the day. If you are maybe trying to reach a potential group of employees, 9 a.m. could make sense. 1 p.m. on the weekends could make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, don't be frightened off. I mean, posting once every 18 hours, posting 9 a.m. on the weekdays, 1 p.m. on the weekends. There's scheduling software for that. Mm-hmm. So it's really about having a game plan, working in front of that and creating evergreen content. And that is what you'll be able to do to create this level of consistency. Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. I am Jennifer.
And I'm Corey.
And today we're going to talk about social media, but a different social channel than we typically talk about. And that is really one of the fastest growing social channels of late for us, and that's LinkedIn.
Yeah, we're going to share some tips from this report actually produced by Sam Brown, who summarized a report, it's a summary of a summary, who summarized a report from Richard Vanderbloom. And Richard spent over 1,200 hours researching the LinkedIn algorithm. And then so what Sam did is summarize that into, it's actually like a 57-page report. But what we're going to do for you guys is give the key 14 takeaways on what you can do to maximize your reach and engagement on the LinkedIn platform and make sure that you're really able to optimize whatever you're doing on LinkedIn. I don't want to say game the system, but you're just going to play by the rules that will benefit you the most.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think some of our viewers and listeners out there are probably like, well, I don't use LinkedIn. But I will say, with as many medical practices as we work with, we're using LinkedIn more and more.
Yeah, we're using it a lot on the recruitment and retention side for employees. We're also using it with associations that we work with. They use it quite a bit because, again, it's the quote-unquote professional network. So a lot of the associations, their members are on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm using it a lot for ortho practices that do direct-to-employer and for self-funded employers from the insurance side of things. And so when we're going after employer to employer, I'm using it a lot in the ortho and ortho-adjacent groups.
Yeah, and one area where LinkedIn has really expanded and it honestly blown up in the past couple of years is in terms of job applicants. It's really become sort of a job platform as well as a social network.
It really has.
Yeah, and so I think when we're talking about recruiting and engaging potential team members, it's a great opportunity to showcase kind of behind the curtain and showcase the culture at the practice where, let's say on Indeed, for example, you're just not doing that.
Yeah, and I'm going to push back a little on some of the comments about video. I know that this was done after 1,200 hours of research, but what were the parameters of the 1,200 hours? Were they done in the last 2 years? Were they done in the last 5 years? I don't know, but I'm going to believe that video is still on the up and up.
Yeah, so what they're saying, and we'll get down to that, is that, so they summarized this, they summarized the engagement levels. And so what they're really looking at is to say, if you follow these rules and these this checklist that we're going to give you, you will maximize your engagement. And if you don't follow this, what they've found through the research is that the LinkedIn algorithm, for whatever reason, sort of tanks the post. It just will cut off engagement. So if you want to maximize engagement, follow this list. So tip number one, and this is way easier said than done, is post once per 18 hours. That's a lot. So if you have been doing this for quite a while and you have a lot of content, sure, that's not so bad. But if you have to post essentially once a day, or once a day and a half, let's say, that's a lot of content to come up with. But what they found is that if you post once every 18 hours, you're gonna sort of organically just start to gain reach and engagement that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once every 18 hours, if you're planning ahead and you have a good content calendar, it's not the end of the world to post once every 18 hours. And they're not saying post once every 18 hours original content every time. They're just saying post once every 18 hours.
Correct. Yep. And then once you post something, the next tip is respond to comments for the first hour. Meaning if you post something, somebody replies to it within that first 60 minutes, respond to it. If they don't, it doesn't really matter.
Great, that's good information.
Yeah, so if somebody posts 6 hours later, don't feel like you have to hop on every single time. I mean, if you want to.
I'm already thinking how I could game the system.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to, great, you want to have that conversation, but don't feel like you have to, because I know a lot of folks, whenever they get a comment, they think right away, oh, I got to hop on there, I got to respond because that's going to get me more engagement.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case.
All right, here's one that we'll like, add selfies to text post.
Yeah, so what they found is images tend to do better on LinkedIn. And what does really well, and I'll attest to this, is when you add a selfie to it. So if you add an authentic photo, it's going to do better than an evergreen sort of static graphic. Obviously, you may need that depending on whatever your post content is. But what they're saying is if you are posting as an individual, add a selfie.
I think that's great information.
Yeah, and then next tip is write 1,200 to 1,600 characters. So that is a pretty long post. And the reason for that is what that does is it keeps folks on LinkedIn longer. So LinkedIn kind of rewards you for doing that because you are creating engagement. People are scrolling down LinkedIn. They're most likely going to engage with that content if they read all 1,600 characters of it. So LinkedIn wants to essentially reward you for creating this longer form type of post.
Yeah, and the next thing on there, some people on our team actually would love that because they love writing really long posts. Mm-hmm. And if they're listening, they know who I'm talking to.
Well, and there's a reason for that too, because there's a tip later we'll get to where that regards links on. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, so the next thing is to engage with 3 posts after you've posted once every 18 hours.
Right. So essentially what they have found is after you post, if you then turn around and engage with other content, you are rewarded for doing that because you're sort of, I guess, spreading the good word on LinkedIn. So if you're engaging with more posts after you post, the post that you posted does better.
That's a lot of posting.
It is a lot of posting.
All right, so the next thing, post 9 a.m. on weekdays, 1 p.m. on the weekends.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much common sense. You know, if you start the morning with a post, people are most likely getting into the office and they're going to look through their feed. 1 p.m. on the weekends, people, after lunch, same thing. We see a slightly different pattern here for our clients. So I think that, this is just general rule of thumb, but like anything, it's going to have to shift to your audience. What we find a lot of times is, again, depending on the audience, but if we are, for example, I was talking about associations earlier, the posts that we use for associations whose members are physicians, those always do better if we post at like 7 a.m. before clinic starts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because they may not stop for lunch and they're just going to go back to back all through the day. If you are maybe trying to reach a potential group of employees, 9 a.m. could make sense. 1 p.m. on the weekends could make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, don't be frightened off. I mean, posting once every 18 hours, posting 9 a.m. on the weekdays, 1 p.m. on the weekends. There's scheduling software for that. Mm-hmm. So it's really about having a game plan, working in front of that and creating evergreen content. And that is what you'll be able to do to create this level of consistency.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the next post is, or the next tip rather, is don't edit your post. So if you made a mistake, too bad. Essentially what that's saying is if you go in and you edit a post after it's already gone up, it essentially just cuts the engagement off. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm. So if you made a mistake, or if you want to maybe tag somebody that you forgot or add a link in after the fact, then that is really going to harm your engagement. So when you hit that publish button, make sure it's correct.
All right, and the next one is don't be the first one to comment on your post.
Yeah, and again, I think that you see that a lot on Instagram.
That's like party etiquette 101.
Right. And you see that a lot on Instagram. People do that. They'll either comment and then add a ton of hashtags, or maybe that's where they put their link for something. And on LinkedIn, that's a no-no. Next tip is the type of posts that do really well. So document posts, polls, carousels, and then a text post, one of those 1,600 character ones with multiple pictures, tend to perform best in the algorithm. So an example of that would be maybe you are an employer, maybe you're an independent practice and you're sharing some some data or some photos from a recent employee event, or you've got a series of posts that talks about the longevity or the growth track for employees. Maybe one image is an MA. Scroll, next one she's branch manager. Next one she's head of finance or something to that effect.
Love that idea.
Those posts do really well, as well as polls and document only posts. So document only posts is long text and then including a PDF.
Okay, interesting. So the next one is videos perform worst.
Yeah, and so that's strictly in terms of reach. So what they're saying is if you do a video, it's not going to reach as many people. It may engage more people, but reach.
Okay, so reach is not as much, engagement is more. So it just depends what you're trying to achieve.
I wouldn't say more. I would just say, again, yeah, it depends on the audience and what you're trying to achieve, yeah.
Because if you recall back during COVID, I always refer to things as during COVID, pre-COVID, and post-COVID. Back during COVID, our team, LinkedIn was starting to really see an uptick. And so our team internally had a contest on LinkedIn. And I forget what we did, but we've had some cash in the game. And we said everybody's got to post every day for like a week or for the month or something like that. Or we took turns. And I just went back and looked at that document, and we said that in our post, and we grew from like 36% overall our channel on LinkedIn, and saw crazy increases, like 3 and 4 times the increases that we had pre-COVID, and it was being driven by video. And so, it's interesting to see, like, has the algorithm changed? Is it just, is it dependent on your audience, or is that really across the board?
Yeah, I think it's the right answer is probably a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Algorithm change depends on the audience. We were also posting a lot more, so that goes back to tip number 1: post once every 18 hours.
We were at least doing every 18 hours.
Yeah, so I think that those things sort of build on each other, and I'm sure the algorithm has shifted as well. I mean, that was what, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Jeez.
I know.
No, it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID was 2020, the worst year ever.
Okay, I thought it was 19. Anyway, okay.
All right, so next, no external links in your post.
Yeah, so if you are posting and then linking out to content, according to the report, they say that again will hurt your reach. And so if you sort of read between the lines here, what that means is you should have a very long text post, then not be the first person to comment, but you should be the second person to comment, following up on a comment, and that is where you would include your external link.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
you can still post it, but what they want to do is get that engagement first, and then have you come in and say, hey, if you're interested in more, click here to get the full report, link, resource, whatever.
All right, that's good info. All right, so if videos are performing the worst, but if you are using videos, tip number 12 is that you make sure that your videos are captioned, something we've been talking about for quite a while.
Yeah, and that is general rule of thumb across the board, every social platform. You should have your videos captioned. Shorts, reels, long form videos, whatever you're doing, they should have captions on them, especially if it's an employer-employee type audience, because most medical practices, preaching to the choir if you're watching this or listening to this, a lot of those workstations don't have speakers. And so if someone is supposed to engage and watch your content, then the only way that they can do that is if there's captions.
We learned the lesson the hard way on this. If you recall, it's probably 10 plus years ago.
An ENT group.
Yep, we were doing social media for an ENT group, and we posted a video, and it didn't have captions. And this is before captioning was so easy. Now, granted, captioning adds a significant amount of time to the process, but this is before it was easy to add captions. Error. Yes, and there's less room for error now. And we posted it, and we had a user comment said, like, I'd love to watch the video, but clearly I have a hearing issue. And you're an ENT practice, and how could you post this without, addressing it? And man, did we backtrack and made sure from here on out, captions on everything.
Yeah, we still remember it.
It was awful.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember the video it was too.
It was the learning lesson. What was it?
It was a post about tinnitus.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. You gotta learn from those mistakes, or they're just mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next one is hashtags. So, and again, I think that this varies platform by platform. Instagram kind of became famous for having as many hashtags as you could think of in there. So what they're saying in this report is you're actually only supposed to have 3. No more, no less. If you have more than 3, it hurts the engagement. You can go up to 5 according to tip number 13. Earlier in the report, however, they say that you really want to keep it at a maximum of 3. And then last tip is add 2 to 4 new comments after 24 hours. So again, you don't want to be, you want to respond to comments in that first hour. You don't want to be the first one. And then after 24 hours, you want to come back and add 2 to 4 because hopefully you've had some level of engagement there. One of those comments can be the external link.
All right, this is a lot of information.
It is.
And I think we will link the full report so anybody that needs something to read when they're sitting on the potty can take the 57 pages. But I think at the end of the day, it says, here's a good cheat sheet if you're going to use LinkedIn. And we're telling you as an organization who's using LinkedIn more and more and really seeing growth on LinkedIn, where we're not seeing growth on Facebook like we used to. And Instagram and TikTok are so video heavy now, which is very difficult sometimes to get with practices. LinkedIn provides a real opportunity to tackle the things that you need to tackle, like employees and employers and things of that nature.
Well, and they say it right here in the report, the thing that does best is a 1,200 to 1,600 character written post, which is, if we're being honest, especially with the rise of AI, that's the easiest thing to produce right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so start rethinking about LinkedIn, take a shot, and take at least a couple of these tips, take them to heart, and try it. See what's going on.
Absolutely.
Good information and good find on this report, Corey. So with that, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch.
See you on LinkedIn.
See you there. If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.